Here we're at another part of the MacLean Ranch. We've got some equipment out there, the Grove, the rock boat, we've seen smudge containers, and now we're at this really cool tractor that we covered a little bit in the first video. But what we didn't cover is something really unique about this tractor. Tell me about that, Charles.
Well, the Caterpillar tractors, of course, had the treads running around, and driving it through the orange trees, they discovered that it was very tough on the limbs and the fruit, so they had to protect the tracks from damaging the trees and the fruit. So they put on what is called Grove Fenders, and it's a very large cover over the track area to let it go through the groves. The limbs would go across it and be shielded from getting caught up in the tracks.
This device is amazing to me. It reminds me of a little tank. But to protect the welfare of the groves, the grapefruit groves and the orange groves here in the Inland Empire, this was a needed device to maintain the integrity of the trees. And it says here, tractor fenders and fruit shield, Green Street Crescent metal shield, Santa Ana, California, with the patent numbers on it. There's a lot of equipment here we saw on the MacLean farm. It's got the patent numbers and the design numbers and all kinds of great stuff. You can see, I bet you, if you put a little elbow grease in this thing, get it up and running. We've got another tractor here. We've had one from the 1920s. This is what, circa 1940, 1950?
Right.
Tell me about this tractor.
Well, after using the Caterpillar tractors, which was the 1920s era Caterpillar tractor, they went to a tired tractor with rubber tires on it. There's a Ford F9 tractor. It was used to, again, pull the equipment through the grove, the trailers for swamping citrus out of the hillside. Also used extensively for the spring tooth, for cultivating or turning over the soil for weed abatement. Used for putting the furrows back in with a furrowing out plow.
What's a furrow?
Furrows were used to convey the water down between the trees before we started using the sprinkler systems with hoses and so on. The original systems were furrow irrigation systems that usually had 4 or 3 furrows in the tree rows.
Little ditches.
Little ditches in the dirt that conveyed the water down between the trees to irrigate them.
Awesome. On a lot of the farms here, you have all this equipment, and many of us don't even know what they're used for. Here's another nondescript piece of metal that's just sitting here. Tell me about this.
Well, this was a saw that was made by Wally Wattenberg from here in East Highlands. This saw was used for cutting firewood. A lot of us heated by using wood stoves in our buildings or houses.
Wow, wood stoves.
Which we still have a house that still is heated by a wood stove. We have lots of firewood from the orange groves. So this particular saw had a table on it, and it slid back and forth and would slide into a blade, a very large blade, about a 24-inch blade was attached to this side of the mandrel. On this side of the mandrel, it had a pulley with a belt on it. These pulleys on this side over here was mounted in a car, actually, the rear end of a car.
In a car?
Wally would jack up the rear end of the car, get it off the wheels off the ground, and that would push the wheels up against the mandrels on both sides, or those pulleys on both sides. This pulley here had a belt on it, went to this here, spun the saw blade that way, and that's how he cut firewood with it.
We talked about this in the early part of the video, our video 1. You did what you had to do on the farm to get things done. Here's a perfect example of that. Ripping out the back end of a car to apply it to make a saw to get firewood to heat your house. Amazing.
These are, again, Grove fenders for the rubber tired tractor. They went on the rear tires of it. You see they're again swooped up. They be able to go underneath the branches and convey the limbs up over the big rear tires to keep it from getting caught in the tires and wheels and damaging it. This one's obviously one for the right side. That one's around backwards, but for the left side. And they're called Grove fenders.
The other fenders that we saw were almost parallel the ground. You can see with modern technology and thinking about more efficient ways to go through the grove, you can see that it's more inclined and the shield is here and up like that. As we go on through this ranch, we've been seeing more modern equipment to make the ranch or the grove run more efficiently. If you've ever driven around orange groves, and if you lived in Highland, Redland, San Bernardino, or around here in the Inland Empire, you're sure to have seen these. What are these? Tell me about it.
This is what's called a standpipe.
Standpipe.
And it's for the irrigation systems. They were called standpipes because they stood up above the ground. Mm-hmm. There would be a pipe running through the grove underneath. It allowed you to be able to take the wagons first or the tractors later up and down the rows of the trees without having the flumes or ditches in the way. So it made it easier to get equipment around in the grove. They generally use these after the original stone flumes and ditches, but they would be able to get the water, force the water up into this area, and it would come out of these gates.
So these are gates for the standpipe.
The gate consisted of an apparatus like this. That was, the hole would be made into the concrete pipe and slipped in there and then concreted in. They had a variety of sizes. This is the classic diamond gate manufactured company gate, slide gate. They had different sizes of them, large ones and small ones that they used in the industry. And earlier on than that, they had a very earlier version of same type of thing, but not nearly as well made. It didn't have the little pipe going back into it, which was easier to cement in. This just applied to the surface and they cemented it in. And it just had folded over edges for the slide gate to slide up and down in. And they would slide.
That's amazing.
Slide up and down to open and close the size of the hole to let more or less water out to control the flow of the water.
Simple device. Tin. A simple tin device. You have four all the way around this cement cylinder that controls the flow of the water down the furrows in the grove. From the 1902 version to the more current version, it's got this cylinder, octagon, oblong kind of shape. It just slots right in there, easier to install, and then you're done. And then somebody manually comes along and opens the channels that you want.
Let it open and closed, depending on the volume of water you needed going down. You can see this one's a little hard to do by hand. It had to be a tight fit so it didn't leak when you didn't want water coming out.
That's what it says on the label. Diamond, no leak.
So the irrigators would use a hoe usually. We generally had a hoe with a piece of metal like an old bolt or a piece of rebar welded on the back side of the hoe down near the end of the handle, and so we could get a hold of it and pull it up or tap on the top to slide it down.
Amazing.
To mount it. Part of the Diamond brand's uniqueness was they kind of had a diamond shape on the bottom here, so you could have a small amount of water running through the area,
or a full-on gush,
full-on open.
Yeah,
have a lot of water coming through.
So this is like a gate.
This is an irrigation gate.
An irrigation gate.
Slide gate.
So I've heard the term gate before, but I imagine, maybe like you did, that it was a larger channel gate. And this is in actuality what it is. So this is the Diamond No Leak Gate patent number. We've got another one here that's 1902. So As you can see, another piece of equipment, simple equipment that's used to maintain the citrus industry here. I just see this here on the ranch. What's this?
This is another type of slide gate. This is not the small irrigation slide gate that was in the flumes and standpipes. This would have been in the delivery system, either a weir box or one of the diversion areas, and it would have a metal frame around it. This would slide up and down in the metal frame. It had a kind of like a spring steel on the back side that would be pinched inside the metal frame, which would force this tight against the metal frame to keep it a good tight seal so the water wouldn't leak in it. And again, this would slide up and down the metal frame.
You could control the amount of flow.
The amount of flow, or shut it off completely to divert it someplace else.
Okay.
Or to, in the standpipe system, there would be a double standpipe every once in a while. That they would have this down in the bottom at the level of the pipe that's running underground. It would shut off the water and back it up behind it. It would come up a tall standpipe that we'll look at later.
Right.
And over a spillway and into another pipe.
Oh, I've seen those.
To head on down, but by backing it up that high, it would be above the top of the farthest one up in the grove.
All right.
To force it out of these standpipe or irrigation system.
Amazing, amazing.